who is the ideal third quarterback, or do you just go with two? I mean, it seems almost a guarantee, Vish, that they're going to bring another quarterback in, whether that quarterback's a veteran quarterback or a young quarterback. If you're running the show, if I said, Vish Kumaran has now become John Lynch, um, what do you think?
I draft
Who's the
one.
quarterback? Who's the
I
quarterback you
draft
want to
one.
bring
I
in?
draft one in the 6th or 7th round. I haven't gotten. I really only really studied the first five quarterbacks in the draft. So Pickett, Willis, Howell, Corral, and Desmond Ritter. But so I don't know the depth of quarterbacks in this draft. I don't think it's really nice. But I do think it's high time that they invest a draft pick, whether it's a 5th or a 6th round pick, into a quarterback and develop him into becoming a backup quarterback for this team. I don't know if this draft really offers that, but I do think that at some point in the next two drafts, it's high time the 49ers draft a quarterback. He doesn't have to be a guy you think can, has to start, but he has to be a guy that you think you can develop and can eventually start and be a good backup and all of that. So I do think from that standpoint, if you ask me what I would do at some point in these two drafts, if I really like a guy at quarterback that I look at as maybe a long-term developmental project, especially, the fact that you can put him on the practice squad maybe for a year because you did give Sudfeld $2 million guaranteed if you don't feel he's ready to even make the roster. I would invest in drafting a quarterback for sure. Otherwise, I think you got to go with two quarterbacks at some point. I know they went with three with Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, and CJ Beathard. I used to get pretty frustrated by that in 17, 18, and 19. I don't, and even 2020, I don't think it's necessary. I think the two quarterbacks is really more than enough. I think that keeping, in my opinion, the way I saw it is keeping CJ Beathard was equivalent to the same thing as signing somebody off the street to your practice squad. Maybe Beathard had a better understanding of the offense, so you wanted to keep him. But I just felt like, in terms of a talent standpoint, you're gonna sign a quarterback with similar level of talent to come in and fill in at that point, whoever's left, to CJ Beathard. So that was my outlook. I would keep the two quarterbacks. You gave $2 million guaranteed to Nate Sudfeld. That's not for him to be a practice squad player like last year. That's not for him. That's for him to be the backup quarterback. And I look at Trey Lance as the starter, and I think you and I both think Garoppolo will eventually, one of these days, get traded, hopefully, or cut or whatever. Some move is going to happen
Something.
eventually. Something will happen. And so, therefore, I think that I would 100% look into drafting a quarterback. I mean, I think Bill Walsh used to say that you should draft a quarterback every year, and New England really used to buy into that philosophy. I think especially if Trey Lance becomes really good, then the Niners have built up so much equity in terms of this culture. The league looks at the Niners and looks at their culture and looks at what they do for quarterbacks. Kyle Shanahan has one of the best offensive reputations in the league. You can develop a guy 2-3 years from now, and he can turn into your Matt Castle. He can turn into your Jimmy Garoppolo. He can turn into, I mean, obviously Garoppolo was a higher level draft pick, but the point is that he can turn into a guy that you can maybe flip for something later, especially with all the Shanahan disciples getting jobs left, right, center. A guy developed in the system, a young guy with a decent amount of talent to maybe start as a bridge guy who knows the system, I think would prove to be an invaluable asset over the next 3 to 4 years.
Is it more important for the 49ers to get some quarterback that could potentially help Trey Lance develop? Or is it more important for the 49ers to get, as you said, a young quarterback that they can try to develop over time? And I bring this up because now that on the chat, Bay Area Baller 18 says Derek King from Miami, who a lot of people like as a receiver.
Yeah.
Niner guy who's on here as well says Skylar Thompson is a guy for day 3. That's a guy that I've thrown out there. I like Skylar Thompson. GTC Reels says, is there any tape on Starkel? That's Nick Starkel, who I've talked about. The fact that I really like Starkel, the former
Yeah, you
A&M
talked about him
quarterback.
last time when I was here.
Yeah, I like Starkel, and I've seen some interviews. I've seen some Trent Dilfer. There's an article I found the other day where, Trent Dilfer was saying that he felt like Starkel threw 3 or 4 of the key passes as good as any quarterback in the NFL today throws them. So, he liked Starkel as well.
A
But I
lot of
mean,
praise.
It is high praise. But
Yeah.
would you rather what's more important, that young quarterback who may be there to push Lance, or maybe a veteran quarterback on the cheap? As you stated, they're not going to throw big money around. But if it's a veteran quarterback on the cheap that helps Trey notice little things on film, or are you going to put all that on Shanahan and Greasy?
Well, I think they already got their veteran quarterback, right? Like in my perfect world, right? Jimmy Garoppolo would have been off this roster, free agency would have started, and they would have made a run at one of the Tyrod Taylors or somebody like that as the backup. I thought Tyrod Taylor would be the perfect backup, honestly. And you know what happens when Tyrod Taylor is the backup? The starting young quarterback goes and breaks the touchdown record. Baker Mayfield broke the rookie touchdown record, then Justin Herbert broke the rookie touchdown record. But jokes aside, and then Davis Mills had a pretty good season
Yeah, he
replacing
did.
Tyrod Taylor. So jokes aside, I thought he would be the perfect backup because he brings a veteran presence. He can start and you can win with him in a pinch. And that he's not good enough where he will ever put pressure on Trey Lance to start. So he's kind of the perfect backup in that sense because he's an elite backup. You can win with him, but you also know that he's never going to beat out the starter. So from that standpoint, I was kind of smitten with that idea. Obviously, he went to New York. And I think they missed their window basically because they did end up giving $2 million. So I think Sudfeld already brings that presence of the veteran guy. Um, at this point, I do think that it would be prudent to draft a guy and develop him again because I think the ability to be able to flip that asset later, especially if he's a guy that plays pretty good in the preseason that the Niners really like and they feel like they can bring along, would become invaluable. Again, like the quarterbacks that are backups in really good systems, or I would even try and rehabilitate an image, right? Like if Sam Darnold hit the open market, bring him in and see what happens. See if you can pull a Trubisky with him and maybe get a compensatory pick if he walks or trade him for something. I don't know. That's a random name I threw out. I'm not a big Sam Darnold fan, to be honest, though I do think with his talent, he would be okay in this offense, better than at any point he's been in his career. And in his career, he's been a bad quarterback. So I think he would be like a fringe starter backup type guy in this offense at this point. I think that's the outlook for him. But that's kind of the way I see it. I think that the quarterback position is kind of finalized. You got to go forward with Trey Lance. I think you brought in Greasy to be also a veteran presence, right? Kyle Shanahan talked about when he talked about Greasy, he talked about what he liked about him as a player in terms of his study habits and all of that. I think that, and he's supposed to be like the mentor and guiding force for Trey Lance. And then Sudfeld, if you give a guy $2 million guaranteed, you certainly have him at least in your short-term plans. So from that standpoint, I think that drafting a quarterback again this year, it might be a little bit tough just because I didn't really like the top of the draft. So I can only imagine what the bottom of the draft is like at quarterback.
Exactly.
I did not think the top of this draft was good at all. In fact, like I'm shocked Malik Willis is getting top 10 hype because I mean the talent is top 10, but watching him, it looks like a little bit better than Jalen Hurts from what I saw in college. That's how raw he
Maybe with a
is.
little stronger arm.
With
Yeah, I
with
mean
more
he's
talent. The
yeah.
talent is top 10. He can throw. Like he can throw. And he's really, really good in the run game. I thought he was the best in terms of just a pure runner of the last two drafts. I liked him better than Fields and Lance as a pure runner. He's not the athlete those two guys are, but I thought he had a better feel for his for setting up his blocks and his vision and all of that. But I'm shocked that he's looked at as a top 10 quarterback. I really am. It just goes to show because I think I like Mac Jones more than him last year, and Mac Jones was drafted 15, so it just goes to show supply and demand. But I can only imagine it might not be possible in this draft, but at least Sudfeld has the $2 million guaranteed. But next draft, especially if Lance is good, I think they should look to invest in drafting a quarterback in the third or fourth or fifth round. Maybe you can, create a high level backup or develop one. I mean, they're gonna be getting these compensatory picks, right? Because I think a lot of us look at D'Amico Ryans and think that's going to be a head coach pretty
Right.
soon.
Yeah.
So they're going to be getting more of these compensatory picks. Why not risk one and take a flyer on developing a quarterback behind Trey Lance?